Good morning, and thank you everyone for joining us for our Reskilling with the Human Approach webinar. My name is Camille Bagwell. It is great to see so many of you guys here. And before we get started, we just have a few things that we would like to quickly do as a bit of housekeeping prior to the beginning of this webinar. Like I said, my name is Camille Bagwell. I'm the Product Marketing Manager at PeopleFluent. And with us today, we have Piers Lee, our Chief Strategy Officer with LTG. He has over 30 years of experience in learning technologies market and is widely considered as a thought leader in the field. In addition to Piers, we also have Jeff Bissell, who is the Vice President of Solutions at PeopleFluent. Jeff has spent the majority of his career in the video learning space with his roots in using video for e-learning. As an entrepreneurial college student, he led the integration of what was Keizo Innovation video technology into what is now the Instilled LXP. And we also have Dawn Barron, the Product Marketing Manager for our learning product at PeopleFluent. Dawn enjoys helping businesses and learning professionals alike find solutions to overcome obstacles in the corporate learning space. So today's webinar, we will have all three individuals presenting various areas of presentation. You will have an opportunity to submit your text questions and they will be answered based on kind of how the presentation will be flowing. And you can also send those questions in at any time during the course of the presentation. In addition to that, we will also provide you guys an opportunity to receive this recording afterwards. So we will be sending this as a post-webinar communication to all who were both able to attend and unable to attend, as well as our reskilling white paper that is a part of the same topic, which we will talk about later on during the course of this webinar. So without further ado, I give you guys Piers, Jeff, and Dawn. Thank you.
Hello all, good morning or good afternoon, depending on where you're located. Welcome to our homes. We all know that that's where we are right now. So we are going to give you some content today that we hope becomes very relevant for you in the moment, but with the intentions of this being relevant content that's going to help and inform your long-term strategies as well. So welcome to Reskilling with a Human Approach. Camille, if you can advance to the next slide. So when we started working together to create this content, we put together these learning objectives. This was all of 6 weeks ago. And 6 weeks ago, we were living in an entirely different world. So we wanted to go through why we intended to deliver this content to you. First of all, we were going to talk about 5 seismic forces. Those forces are going to be described to you by Piers, who has authored the white paper that Camille referred to and really goes into depth about how each of those forces are changing the workplace today and what we need to do in order to adjust to that change or those changes. We're also going to try to describe for you some of the solutions for how you can take those forces and start to meet people where they are by giving them solutions that are efficient, scalable, and help with productivity. And then finally, we'll talk with you about some of what other companies are doing so that you can understand and absorb some of their best practices. All of those learning objectives still stand, but today we're going to take those to a very practical level. We are all, literally all of us, all over the globe in a unique situation, the same situation. We're dealing with a current crisis, but that doesn't mean that business stops. And more importantly than ever, it doesn't mean that we stop taking care of our people, both from a personal perspective as well as a professional perspective. And our responsibility as learning and development professionals is to make sure that we help our people grow. And we do that through skills and through development opportunities. So we're going to talk today about how we can approach reskilling to meet people where they are when we're dealing in a remote work and social distancing environment. This is very new to all of us. And earlier when we talked about this content, even just a few days ago, we talked about how we would approach reskilling in the new normal. But since then, we've heard new normal and it becomes almost something that we don't want to say. We don't want this to be the new normal. It's not. It's temporary. but it's a great time for us to discuss first times to try new things. We've all thought about trying new things in the profession, but sometimes we just get caught up in the day-to-day and we don't give ourselves the opportunity to do so. But this time, now that we are forced to change the way we work, we're giving ourselves the ability to try new things. It's the first time for us to deal with reskilling in a way that we may not have thought about before. So we're going to talk to you about how we're going to operationalize those reskilling techniques, how we're going to take those 5 forces that we'll describe for you throughout the webinar, and really start to apply them to what we're doing now. So for the first time, you're going to be working differently. It's not working in the new normal. It's the first time you're trying to do new things in order to set yourself up for a stronger tomorrow. With that, we'll move to the next slide. Pierce, I'd like to bring you into the mix since you are the creator of the 5 forces, not responsible for all of them, but for putting them all together on this slide.
Thank you very much, and thank you everyone for joining in today. And I know that everybody's under pressure, even though you're at home, and so thank you for sparing the time to do this. I think that what we did is I wrote this paper at the end of last year, published at the beginning of this year, which is talking about these 5 forces here. And what you'll see is that none of these 5 forces are kind of new. We've all been dealing with these things for a while now. But I think the point that we're trying to make is that it's the coming together of these things. And we're going to go into each one, so I won't go into each one in huge detail now. But when you've got everything becoming more complex at the same time as everything's speeding up, then clearly there is a crunch there for people and how people learn at work. What you then add to that is demographic shifts, which are going to occur over the next 10, 20 years, which means that certainly in the Western world, there are going to be less people available to work in the workplace. You've then got this issue, which is that they think that 90% of future growth will come from increased productivity. So the question is, how do you get organizations to become more productive? How do you get people to become more productive? And obviously development plays a big role in that. And then finally, you've got this new generation coming into the workforce where people have a changing relationship to work. And potentially we see that across all 5 generations in the workforce as well, just people's shifting approach to work. And the question is, how do organizations hire and retain good people and develop people through that process? So we're going to touch on each of those, but I really just wanted to frame the 5 so that we've got those as we go in to each one. So the first thing we're going to talk about is the complexity of business and work. And if we just go on to the next slide, just got a few examples here. And I'm not going to go into all of these, but we're just really looking for kind of, obvious examples of things where we can see complexity increasing. And if you look at the bottom row there, you've got certified medical specialties and subspecialties in the US. In 1992, there were 28. In 2019, there were 127. So that's nearly 100 more specialities. And you can see that with what's going on with all of the advances in medicine, with the development of the genome and of all of the kind of science that's coming out of that, the specialisms are going to get even deeper. And we just need to think about the complexity of the health world as far as that's concerned. And obviously with what's going on at the moment, just think of the amount of learning that's going on about new viruses, for example. AI patent applications, you can see the massive rise there. Just imagine what that number is going through right now. And then look at the Code of Federal Regulations there, 21,000 pages in 1962, over 180,000 in 2018. And that's only going to increase. And what we're often finding is that when you see governments talking about deregulating business and those sorts of things, which over the last 20 years we've heard a number of governments saying that that's what they're going to do, even then the amount of actual kind of regulation increases. So in periods of more regulation, obviously more appears. So I think there's a complexity in the law and in what businesses have to follow, and everything to do with compliance and regulation, and those sorts of things are on the increasing the complexity of what's going on. So that's just we all know that everything is becoming more complex. It was just really to get a few illustrations of that.
Absolutely. And one of the things that when we're talking about complexity, we as learning and development and talent professionals have to think, we don't want the work we do to be one more thing. We want to take the work we do and bring it into the flow of work. And that's one of the ways that we can ease the complexity of all other things that are going on in business and personal. So one of the things that we wanted to talk to you about was the transition from taking just-in-case learning to just-in-time learning. And how do you make that such that you can make learning a performance support to your employees so that they can manage the day-to-day, find what they need, get to work? And one of the examples that we're going to discuss with you, and Jeff, I'd like to welcome you into the discussion here, since you were working specifically with Union Tank on their efforts, is just to talk to us about the challenge that Union Tank was facing and what they started to do in order to see and ease up on the strain that training and development was putting on their organization, but also the productivity and efficiencies that they gained by making some of these changes.
Yeah, thank you, Dawn. Absolutely, it's really exciting to think about this, and what they've done. I like to think of it kind of as the YouTube for training sort of content, and where they started was actually getting relevant user-generated or SME-generated content from the field. They had really technical products that creating simulations, creating traditional e-learning was going to be timely and costly to do. So they literally just let people in the field with their mobile devices record content, share what was there. It wasn't perfect. It was informal, like the webcams you see here. There's a dog laying on a bed behind me. That's like a human element of what's there. They embraced that people in the field could just turn on their webcams, share what they're doing, and got the content into that. Then they also embraced on the consumption side that people don't want to or are not going to take 30 to hour-long pieces of content. They needed the 30 seconds they needed. So they made sure that the content was captioned and searchable down to the spoken word and chunked up. So there's a lot of talk about micro-learning and short-form content, what's the best length, that sort of stuff. And in their case, they said, hey, it's going to be really expensive if we recreate everything in minute-long chunks. So let's just chunk up some of that longer form content. And they took advantage of that so people could find the relevant content that was relevant to them and then get back to what they were doing. And I think on the stat was what were able to do with 5 people, what they traditionally thought they were going to be able to do with 25, I think was what they shared with us.
Yeah, and actually, I'd like, Jeff, if you can, we have a mid-market audience with us today, so I thought it could be good for you to kind of make the associations between what the mid-market is and Union Tank. And so like you're saying, like they had 25 people working on a project that they were able to do in 5 once they realized these efficiencies. So when we're dealing with a mid-market audience, and they're not huge, but they're not tiny, like, can you talk a little bit about the similarities between Union Tank and the mid-market audience so that we can say, this is something that you can realize too?
Yeah, well, for us and them, it was embracing video as a medium to do that because it was so quick, easy, efficient, and relevant. And the relevant became the big part was no one wanted to watch out-of-date content. So having that quick, easy to use, relevant content that was there, and the speed that they were able to get it out there. So they created a piece of content and a minute later it was available for people to consume. So business was moving that fast for them and things were changing that quickly. So the fact that they were able to adapt to that in the training that they were producing really resonated to their team, and their consumption has grown like crazy because of that.
Right. And you just hit on something that we're going to address in our next force, and it is the pace of change. The fact that many organizations are dealing with either products and services that are rapidly changing. And so many times the L&D professional who creates this great content finds that they're recreating that content before it's even used. And that is a problem that we've heard for years and years from our L&D professionals and customers. And it's something that we are going to only see get busier. Our pace of change is more, it just continues to grow. Right now, we're dealing with an accelerated pace of change because we're being asked to do things very quickly because we weren't expecting to have this business environment that we're currently living in. So Pierce, I think this slide is going to be really great for you to describe because it shows where we were, where we're coming, and where we are now, and then what this particular situation has brought to the table.
This is one of the things that's in the white paper that you'll get the link to, but it was just really interesting. This is the view of CFOs across businesses, looking at what the top 5 risks are to their business. And what you'll see is that in Q2 or Q3 2018, the pace of change point here didn't even come into the top 5. And suddenly, for whatever reason, end of Q4 2018, first 2 quarters of last year, it's gone right to the top. And that's before anything that's happening now to our world. And so this issue of the pace of change is seen by chief financial officers as the main risk. And of course, that's something then, if you've got the pace of change there, you really do need to be able to keep up. And I just wanted, before we move on, just to pick up on that Union Tank story just for a second, which is that combination of complexity and speed of change is really present in that story. And with the people on the ground, the engineers on the ground actually making these videos, they went from something like 0 to 2,500 videos in the space of about 18 months. And the point about that is that if you've got the systems to be able to do it, then you can go into the crevices of the business. You go into quite specialist areas dealing with complexity. It might even have quite a small audience on the other end of it, but at least they're able to get what they're required to do with the equivalent system and that sort of thing. So I think it's I think that story does actually kind of go to both pace of change and complexity.
Yeah. And in the white paper, we describe a few different approaches. Camille, if you move to the next slide, we have that list of ways to adapt to pace of change. We can't go through them all right now, but we are going to talk about a few. One of the things that we know about with L&D professionals is that we wear many hats, from everything from the strategy to the design to engagement to analytics. We're all doing everything. And if you think about how we're doing more and we're asked to do it faster, we have to come up with a solution for that. And so one of the ways that we've been working with our customers about how they can do that and share responsibility is by making managers as well as employees the nexus for that reskilling. And what we mean by that is giving them the ability to create content. It's been for years, we have talked about e-learning, and we talked how many hours it takes to create 1 hour of e-learning content. And that stat was running around and changing all the time. But at this point, it's more of how can we get good content out there from the people who are experiencing it. That helps us move to that human experience that we have talked about and will continue to talk about. And a great way for that to happen, as well as to start sharing the responsibility for learning so that we can adjust to the pace of change, is by giving the creative ability to your managers, to your leaders, and to your employees so that they can share content, which is, it ultimately becomes learning moments for the entire organization. We are going to show you, Camille, if you can move to the next slide, just an example of what this can look like. And this is so familiar to all of you right now because I guarantee you have seen every single one of your colleagues on a video within the past 3 weeks, at least once. So this is not a new look and feel. I'll tell you this, about 6 to 8 weeks ago when we would show this slide, people would say, oh, that's how it looks when you're on video and you see comments. Now we know what this looks like. And the reason that we're bringing it to your attention here is because it really captures so much of the experience that we want in a learning moment. We want it to be approachable. So you have the casual element here. We want it to be from any device, whether you're using it, you're doing it from your phone, you're doing it from your computer, doing it from your iPad. It's very accessible. And then we want collaboration and social around it. And so in certain, depending on the platform that you use, here we used our own Instilled by PeopleFluent, you're able to make comments, you're able to like comments, share comments, you're able to search those comments. So this becomes a very good way for you to take, as L&D professionals, to give creative license to other people in your organization to create content that becomes very usable and shareable amongst your organization. I'm actually going to hand this one over now to Jeff because we are going to do this for you live so you see how easy it can actually be. So go ahead, Jeff, take it away.
Let's see here. Hold on. I'm going to make myself the presenter. Here we go. Love technology. All right. And share. Are you able to see my screen, Dawn and Pierce?
You can.
Yes,
You're the only ones that can talk to me.
Yeah.
Yes, I love it when technology works. All right. So what I wanted to walk you all through today was the simplicity of recording a video and how casual and relatable that can be. And I'm going to do that actually by recording a video. I'm in our Instilled platform now, but in theory, you could use any video management tool that securely creates it. And one of the key elements of this is providing a safe environment to record content. Not everyone's going to want to record a video that ends up on YouTube for the world to see. And some of the content that they might be actually creating might be proprietary. You don't want on those public channels. So the behavior that's there is going to happen. And using technology to embrace it was something that Union Tank and a lot of our customers are doing to keep control of it. So I'm in my Instilled platform here. And the idea here is that I'm in an area where I could create, I could copy, I could upload, I can record. So say I really like that Union Tank case study, and I want to,
Jeff,
share
I'm
that
just going
with
to
some of my
interrupt you for a
colleagues.
second. Your audio is very scratchy. It may be because of where your microphone is, or it may be because you've got a bad connection.
You got it.
Yeah.
I would just hold it.
And
But yeah,
let me, sorry about
Are
that.
you-
Let me just stop sharing this webcam too, and that will help me do that. All right. Can you hear me a little better now?
much.
Yes.
Yay, sorry about that. Joys of technology. So I'm going to make this Union Tank case study show up here. But then the key part of this is that I actually want to record some new content in here. So one of the things that that we do is allow you to record content directly into a platform. So I can do that right here and make it really easy. I can do this from a mobile device anywhere in the world. But also, again, if people aren't quite there to record content, we have easy screen capture. So people talk a lot, and Piers and Dawn and I were having this conversation of, oh, I don't have a lot of video, or I don't want to turn on my webcam, but maybe I just want to walk someone through a PDF or a presentation that I have. I can just pull things up and walk people through that, and that is video. Anything time-based can be video. So recorded GoToMeeting sessions, Zoom, all of those things do create content. So don't forget about those as content sources as well when you're thinking about video. I won't do a screen capture of them here, but I am going to record a quick video and then I'm going to share it with all of you so you can contribute as well. So I'm going to hit start recording to give me a little countdown, and I'm going to say, hi, I'm Jeff. I'm here today recording this quick video to talk about how easy it is to create new content from your home. You'll see me sitting here in my guest room, home office with a dog hanging out behind me. He buried himself into the pillows there. And I wanted to share a quick example about how working from home and turning on video has really kind of personalized, helped build personal connections with a lot of my colleagues. I've learned more about them in the last week and a half than I have in years of working with them, because we've been forced into sharing more intimate details about where we live and where we work and the exciting things that are happening in our life. So if you can, when you log in, please feel free to share a comment or question about something that's changed for you over the last week, and we'll continue this discussion. So my video is there. I could preview it. I'll assume that one's perfect, and I'll submit that piece of content into the platform. So it's going to upload, render, and process that for us. So a couple of things that our technology is doing to kind of help make this even more engaging, and I must have clicked delete twice there. I'm going to delete one of these, is we're going to do auto speech to text on the content that's being created. Because for us, it's not just a video. You want to kind of unpick that and be able to get between different segments that are there. And doing that speech to text allows the content to be searchable down to the spoken word. The second thing that happens is we're going to add those chapters, markers, and all of that in there to make it kind of chunked up. So if I go into my lightweight content editor, most people will say they don't know how to edit content, but at the end of the day, it's as simple as just drag and dropping scissors to remove segments that are there. If I have chapters or markers that are there, it's as simple as just clicking through my content and dragging and dropping and removing those to where I want, or editing that's there. This is stuff that can be done by an everyday user that's there. And then on the auto speech to text that happens, providing a really simple and easy to use editor that will auto translate into different languages. So I have Arabic, English, and French here. I can click between it. I can see the different text that's there. I don't speak any of those other languages, so I'm just showing you English. And I can really easily get in here and edit or correct anything that's there. So this is all stuff that traditionally took hours of time, maybe outsourced professionals. Being able to do it quickly and easily within the technology will help get it out there. And we know it's not going to be perfect, but it's going to be good enough. And that's what's going to drive the relevance of the content. So let me take a breath here. I'm going to reorder this and make sure this is ready. And I'm also going to grab this share link, Dawn, when I have a chance. But did you want to add something there? I saw you kind of, I think you were about to say something, but.
Yeah, well, when you mentioned like it's good enough, having worked with L&D professionals for a long time, we're a bit of perfectionists. So I wanted to comment on why, in this case, good enough could actually be really good. And this goes back to the idea of a human framework. People like to learn from each other. We're in a mixed demographic in the workplace right now, where we have a lot of young professionals who are very, very familiar with creating their own videos and sharing their videos. We are dealing with a generation that is not familiar with video or is now being forced to use video. We're also at a place where collaboration has become far more mainstream on social. So the barriers of that professionalism when it comes to creating e-learning or learning modules, it's changed a bit. It's not that it's unprofessional, it's just that it's different. And right now we're looking at this through the perspective of being able to share quality learning opportunities, quality performance support opportunities to people when they need them in the flow of work. So that's where we can compromise maybe a little bit on spending all the money on a professional videographer. We are the ones who have the knowledge. That's what's primary importance right now. So while not good enough, maybe because the video quality isn't the best, what's great is this content that we're able to share and how quickly we're able to share this content. Oh, look at that. So your video is up there and captioned.
It's already there. My playlist of content that I just created, I posted into the link, the chat for everyone. So you're welcome to click in and watch that. It will hopefully be all okay. And I see there's already people in there commenting and interacting with it as well. So there's Mike, thanks for commenting on the voice recognition and the speech to text. He even asked a question there of how this is done. We are using actually the same engine that YouTube uses to do the auto speech to text. That brings in the machine learning, the neural networks, AI, all of that really cool stuff. We're taking advantage of there, and that's the same thing with the translation as well. If I want to make sure this is available in multiple languages, I can do that very easily.
Yeah, absolutely. And we welcome you all to make a comment in the video. Jeff, if you can just describe the process for doing that so people can just have their own opportunity to explore what the Instill platform feels like.
Sure. So when you're in here, I see someone else already figured out how to do it. Thanks, Kim. Thanks, Mike. And someone came in as an anonymous user. But again, you can just come in here right here and say, hello. Please share your example stories. And you can submit and add these comments right in there. So super easy to do right there in the flow of work. I'll get alerted and we can have a discussion around what's happening. All of these will also become searchable. So I can search on this FAQ, I can get people back to it, and they can continue to engage. And we have lots of conversations where people ask, how do I get people back into my learning platforms? And one of the things that really drives that is relevant content that is created by trusted peers and individuals within their organizations that are the experts that are out there. So that's kind of building that. It's using video to build that personal connection. You're building trust and relevancy with the people. And when you do open it up for commenting and discussion, that's going to, again, drive more engagement into that content.
Yeah.
So with that, Dawn, I'm going to go ahead and stop sharing here, and we can click back to the slides.
Yeah, and you're all welcome to go into that at any point. It doesn't have to be now, so you can take that link and visit later and see how it works. Also, as we start to move into force number 3, I just wanted to let you all know that we are welcoming any questions. So if you have any, please let us know. I'm taking a look at them. So if we can answer them during the flow of our conversation, we'd love to do so. So feel free to ask your questions. Pierce, we are going to move on to the next slide now. So we are going to be talking about demographic shifts, which we kind of touched on just a little bit ago when we were talking about favoritism toward video. But Camille, if you can throw those slides up.
No problem at all, and I'll start talking about it. So we're talking about the demographic shifts which are occurring, which if you just go on to the next slide, Camille, thank you. You know, what's being talked about is somewhere between a $10 trillion or an $8.5 trillion shortage of talent by 2030. Now, whatever it is that's going on at the moment, I actually have got some stats which were looking at the recession of 2008 and looking at how quickly the job market came back. And I think there's no question that we're all expecting some issues in the, you know, what has been a very tight labor market. There is no question that that is going to loosen up a bit because of what's going on with COVID-19 and the whole of the situation at the moment. But I think what we also have to reckon is that you know, everybody that's looking at this, I think, is predicting that the comeback will be very fast. And so we're looking at that. We looked at what happened in 2008 and seeing that actually the job market recovers very quickly. So this issue of there being not enough people in the workplace in the Western world to do all the jobs that are around is not going to go away. Okay, and that means that organizations, the kind of the requirement to have really good people and to be able to have those people actually changing in their jobs and keeping up with the times means that we're going to have to reskill the people who are in the business at the moment. And that means that organizations are going to have to become very sophisticated about how they do that and about how they link the skills required for the future and the talent that's there in the organization and the requirement of individuals and what it is they want to do in their business. So this is an issue which is going to really consume us in the people area of businesses for the next 10 years. If you just go on to the next slide, you know, there's just a very obvious reason why. If you look at what's going on with the children under 18, you can see they're coming down in the US, and adults over 65, you know, crossing over in about 2035. That's actually all happening about 10 or 15 years earlier in Europe. So it's already happening here. And the consequence of this is that even now, you know, finding good people is the biggest pressure. And that's all in the white paper as well right now, in terms of people being able to find people to do the jobs that are required. So whilst obviously we're going through an extraordinary time at the moment, we don't think this issue is going to go away.
Yeah, absolutely. I mean, one of the stats that I recently saw was that there are 10,000 Americans a day turning 65. That is not going to change with what we're dealing with right now. That is showing that we have a very large part of our workforce that is going to retire. So how are we going to take the knowledge that they have about the companies that they work with and for and preserve that and be able to share it with the other people who are remaining in the workforce? And then to this graph's point, we have fewer people who are coming into the workforce. And then add to it, we have a bunch of jobs that we don't even know will exist in the next 10 years. So much is changing that we don't know what jobs we're going to be asking people to apply for. So how do we know the skills that we're going to need for them? So the idea of making sure that they're well-rounded and have essential skills so that they can quickly adapt to these new jobs and these new requirements is really critical. But that all is about reskilling. So we'll move on to the next slide now. And we're going to talk a little bit about, so Pierce, I'll let you lead this one up again. And this guy goes right into it. So we know that we have to reskill, and we know we have to do so because we're competing with and through productivity.
So what's interesting about when you look at productivity growth, you can see that actually it isn't productivity growth at all. It's the opposite of that. And the question is, what is behind that? And what's also interesting there is that Europe and the US are actually have come together in the recent past very much. And obviously there's an element of automation. There's an element of using some of the new technologies coming in order to increase productivity. But you've got to increase the skill of people alongside that technology as we go, and help people to keep up with that. And all the predictions are to do with, obviously, everyone knows that using these new technologies and people's skills in digital and all the rest of it are incredibly important. And they are, but actually the prediction is that it's actually the real requirement's going to be for the soft skills and development alongside those technical skills, and that actually that's predicted to be the shortage rather than the shortage of technical skills itself. But if we just go on to the next slide, what this shows, and this is a McKinsey report, which is a couple of years old, but if you just look at, this is the captured digitization potential. So this is how much digitization has already occurred in, and you can see that the US is top of the charts there with 18%. That means, let's just say that figure is now 25%. Okay, there's still 75% of the effect of thinking digital and the digital economy to come, even in the US. Okay, so we are going to go through a period of massive rapid change over the next 10 to 20 years.
Yeah, and when we looked at this slide, and again, comparing to when this white paper was authored and what we're dealing with now, the fact that we have only achieved, at least in the US, 18% of our digital potential, I think we all realize now that there is much more to be attained. The idea that we went from being in the workplace to being at home, we see the need for us to connect digitally more than ever. Jeff, I'd like for you to talk a little bit about some of the companies we've been talking to since this crisis happened, because we are offering the technology for free because we want people to continue to learn and to work remotely, and how we've been hearing some companies say, you know, we've never explored digital learning. We've only done instructor-led. And we basically, between our group, we've been saying, it's okay, you didn't need to. Now we need to do that, but we also need to do it for the long haul, because we have Gen Z coming into the mix that wants to do remote work. We have this gig economy that just continues to grow. These are people that are so critical to our workforce, but we need to be meeting them where they are, and that is much more through a digital format. So do you have any more recent examples, Jeff, of some of the companies that have been coming to us saying, hey, this is where we are, how can we realize some of this great digital innovation that we have going on when it comes to learning?
Yeah, can you hear me okay? I just want to make sure the mic's not scratchy this time. Okay,
for now,
good, perfect.
You seem a little bit flip-flop, so we'll let you know.
Joy of live internet in presentations. So yeah, as you mentioned, we do have the free offer now, because we want to get people in there, and we want to take down any barriers to getting started. Don't worry about how many users, how much content, all of those sort of things. Just enable the technology that's going to allow your people to securely start to create content, because the content is the key to all of it. You need the relevant content that's there. And Dawn and I and Piers have joked a lot about scraping the tape off the webcam. And I think what has happened in the last couple of weeks has changed a lot of things, but it's also changed people's comfort with doing that, and being okay recording content, and being more okay with the informal nature of that content, in favor of the relevancy of what it is. We're all going through stuff that we never would have predicted. So there's no way we have e-learning content that's created to help with this yet. Some of the third-party providers are out there doing that, but in most cases, it's needs to be timely and relevant to your organization. So that's what a lot of people are coming to us to do. And then also, I will say, to quickly get content out. One of the things that we focus a lot on is the simplicity around learning, that we don't need to over-engineer these huge LMS systems with complex workflows and all of that. And one of the examples of that, I think I shared the slide actually by accident when I was going through it, was the Resuscitation Council in the UK. They came to us last Thursday, had some content to get out to train the incoming workforce that's coming in to help out the medical field on resuscitation, critical training. And we were able to get it out and deployed to over 150,000 people on Monday. So 4 days to implement a learning platform and get content out to a really large audience that's critical to what they need. That's something that just didn't really happen before, and people weren't thinking about it. They were thinking about LMSs as 6 or 9 month or multi-year initiatives. So thinking about learning programs is less about the technology, less about LMSs versus LXPs versus DLPs, but just providing a platform for people to be able to quickly get content out there, I think is something that is resonating.
Absolutely.
Do you agree, Dawn, from what you've seen as well? And Piers, please jump in.
Yeah, and it's just right now we need to move faster. All of the things that we thought about doing from a learning perspective to make it more digital, more collaborative, more social, heavier reliance on user-generated content. This has all been accelerated in the past couple of weeks, and we're actually seeing companies adjusting to that accelerated pace. And it's to my point earlier when I said these are firsts, this is the first time they're doing it, and it is uncomfortable. But we're figuring it out together, and we're working with these companies in order to make it such that they don't have to stop business. They don't have to stop their people from learning. They don't have to, there's so much confidence that's built around people having milestones and learning new activities and learning new skills. And that should be paramount right now to make sure making sure that you keep your teams together. Keep them together through this learning that they all have a passion for. And so being able to create, to have a platform that lets them do that quickly is going to make them motivated to continue doing that.
I just want to say something on the subject of quality here, because I think that, as a profession, we've been through, a long learning experience of creating learning experiences and about actually those being high quality and making sure that they're the right material and things like that. And I just want to say something about that this is not throwing all of that out of the window. This is saying allow the learning to grow inside the organization, allow people with knowledge and understanding and experience to be able to share that knowledge, understanding and experience. But when you then get what we're doing with a lot of customers is that when you get something which is like a real gem, you actually put it into the official blended learning experience, and you pull that in and you say, okay, this is now something that we're endorsing as L&D and as the organization as something which is officially what we want to say. So you can have areas of this which are the official part of it, and you can have areas of it which are the free for all for people to go in and exchange ideas and thoughts and comments. And that is incredibly valuable. And then you get a lot of people who then worry, well, what happens if people are doing things which are inappropriate? Do you know what? It's the same thing as when people are working in an office or sitting in a meeting. You realize very quickly if people start behaving inappropriately, they get pulled down by the rest of the organization, the other people in that social group. It's the same thing. Don't worry about that. It's fine. It works.
Yep,
right.
Absolutely. And that's a great point, Piers. And to that also is looking at the analytics around that can help actually prioritize some of your more formal content strategies and training strategies. Like maybe there's actually areas of interest that you didn't predict that have huge amounts of views and interest and comments in, and using those analytics around the behavior of what's happening and what people are talking about to drive that strategy becomes a big thing to look at.
Right. Hey guys, we have a great question, and it's in regard to, we're talking a lot about the positive side of content creation and letting people be creators no matter who they are in the organization, but what about the organization of that content? So while it sounds really aspirational to go from 0 videos to 2,500 videos, our friend Stan is like, what am I going to do with 2,500 videos? Like, how are we going to find them? Where are they going to go? So can you talk a little bit, maybe Jeff, about just how we do that for people when it comes to using the Instilled platform, or our methodology behind it?
Yeah, that's a great point, and that's why people come that we definitely help them with. And I think there's a couple behaviors that help there. Is one, not necessarily having like a zero state or a blank slate. Like group and categorize the buckets or the collections or channels or whatever term you want to use, so that people have kind of a defined area to go, and then make them the permissions and structure so that the whole world doesn't see them right away. Maybe they can review it with a small team before it goes out there, and then have curators in place that will then move that into areas that are more widely accessible. But having sort of a structured environment becomes really important to that. People like people like browsing libraries and browsing content, browsing Netflix, browsing YouTube. So you have to give people the ability to browse, but that also, when you create that structure, helps drive the creativity and how people are thinking about where their content should live and the type of content that they're going to create. And then I mentioned this in the demo, and you saw it with the captioning. For us, I think one of the best things that you could do is leverage some sort of auto speech to text and captioning, because it's going to make your content searchable down to the spoken word. It's going to do the heavy lifting for the people that are creating the content, so that we start to know what's happening in it and people can search and discover and find that content.
Great.
I think we have one bank using this particular system that has created something like 3.8 million minutes of material, and on average each of those minutes has had 180 views. So if you think about the usage of that across 50,000 people, that's a huge usage time, and that can be some things which are in very small departments and some things which are going across the business. And about 70% of that has been made by the community, about 30% of it by L&D. So this is, some of that is formal, and then the majority of it is actually created by the business itself. I think it's a good example.
Absolutely. All right, and we don't have too much time left together today, but we are going to end on a human note. We're going to talk about the last force here, which is talking about the changing relationship to work. We have heard so much over the past couple of years about a focus on wellness, the whole employee, making sure that there are benefits within the workplace that really support an employee from a professional as well as personal standpoints. We also know from data that many job candidates are looking for far more than just their compensation now when they take a job. They're looking for the types of development opportunities that the employer is going to provide to them, the type of community service that the employer works to support, a variety of different things. And this has started to create a tipping point for when a job candidate will say, I want to take that job. It's more of how much they can contribute as an employee of that particular company. So Piers, if you want to just talk a little bit to this graph and what it means for the future of workplaces that we're currently working with.
I'll just make one very quick point, I think, which is that it's moving from this term that I think we all probably know quite well, which is the employee experience, and everybody's talking about the fact that you need to do that in order to make sure that people want to come and work in your business. But actually that's shifting to this, it's shifting to the human experience. Treat people as people and treat them and as they are. And that's what organizations are going to have to do. So it's creating this thing that's, Deloitte is calling a human experience, but it's that sense of treating people as people.
Absolutely. And we have just one more slide here, if you don't mind, Camille. So we wanted to give you a taste for that. We've talked a lot about video in this presentation, and clearly video is not the only way that we can get learning and development content out to our teams, but it is definitely a useful way to do so for reskilling efforts, for skilling efforts in general, right now while we're dealing with a remote workforce and social distancing. Our own CEO has been doing weekly video meetings from his own home to over 600 people within the organization. And more than 600 people actually join on a weekly basis to hear what he has to say, because he does take a human approach to a very difficult situation, not just from the personal side of it, but he also talks about the business aspects of things. And so we just wanted to do a few call outs from a recent call that he had with the team. The fact that there were over 600 people on the call, the fact that he was recognizing we are working from home, and at home our environments are different than they are at work, and we have children that are also at home, and we have pets, and we don't have offices in some cases. And so these are things that we need to be looking at and being respectful of, because as Jonathan said, your wellness is of paramount importance, and we are all dealing with this situation right now, and we have to work together in order to do so. So this is pretty much all of our content for today. I wanted to just leave you with a few things. We've mentioned a few times throughout this call, human framework, human experience. Right now, we're being asked to do things that maybe don't feel very human, but again, make it your first attempt to do things a little bit differently and still be able to connect with the people that we work with and that means something in our lives. And I say that because it's, while it may not be okay to shake hands and hug, it is okay to make eye contact, and it is okay to acknowledge. And so continue to do all of those things and reach out to people with opportunities that make them feel confident. And one of the ways that we can do that, and that we ask you all to do that so that you can support your own passions, is doing that through learning experiences. Share a video, tell someone about something that you're doing, help someone out by providing them with a short video that describes something that they're doing and that others may be able to benefit from. There's lots of ways that we can be doing that from now, so that we don't have to look at this as the new normal. We don't have to look at this as the worst times in our lives. We can look at this as the first time that we're trying something new. So on the slide here, we have a link, a QR code to the white paper, as well as a QR code to use Instilled. So if you want to give it a try with your organization, we would love to help you to do so. All you need to do is take your smartphone up to the screen and take a picture of both of those, and they should automatically link you to the websites to complete the forms to get the white paper, or to work with us on bringing Instilled to your organization. With that, Pierce, Jeff, do you have anything final to say?
I think there is something coming with all the links on it as well after this, isn't there?
Yeah, an email will go out, and it will have a link to this recording. It will also have a link to the white paper. And so a few of you had asked that question, will this be available? It absolutely will. Camille will be sending you a note to thank you for your time, and also to give you these resources. So I think we're about done here, but we aren't done with you guys. If you have any questions or at all about us, you can find us, and we'll be sure to help you out during this time. So Pierce, Jeff, you have anything left to say?
No, I appreciate everyone's time today and the busy schedule, and I challenge everyone to record content and get it out there and try it. You'll be surprised in the reaction you get from colleagues when you're vulnerable and put yourself out there to create content.
That's very true. Thank you.
Absolutely. Yeah, and thanks, Camille, for this opportunity. We will hand it off to you.
Thank you, guys. Well, I appreciate everyone for being able to join. As Dawn mentioned, there will be some post-webinar communications being sent out that will include the recording of this presentation, as well as the white paper that Piers wrote. And we look forward to engaging with you guys in the future. Have a great day.
Bye, everyone.
Bye-bye.